All right, welcome everyone. We're going to give you about a minute before we get started. We're talking about college recruitment today. Welcome everyone. Go ahead if you want to introduce yourself in the chat. We love learning about each coach that we have here and getting to know y'all and where you're at in the process. Are you new to esports coaching and don't know anything about college and the college process, or you've already had some players that were recruited? We do have the QA feature, so if you have specific questions for our panelists today, you can put those there and we will make sure to ask them. If it makes sense, I will stop and ask the question when they're done with their section, or we will wait until the end. We've done a mixture of both. Awesome. So we're just going to go ahead and get started. Again, welcome to our coach chat about college recruitment. We are featuring Nate Meeker, Dr. John Price, and Justin Tolbert. Today we're going to cover the basic overview of the different types of college programs you can have. What are the coaches' responsibilities and what are the players' responsibilities? And then in the end, we're going to have a Q&A session. We are so fortunate to be featuring 3 of our collegiate super coaches. I'm going to give you a little information and intro to them, and then they're going to take it away and give you all the information. So first we have Nate Meeker. Nate is the director of esports at the University of Akron. He has been a faculty member, curriculum developer, admin staff for over 10 years. He worked for universities in 3 different counties at the admin or faculty level, teaching classes, recruiting students, and developing curriculum. Nate has has experience with high-level play in CS, League of Legends, Hearthstone, and more, including winning the 2006 Star Wars CCG World Champion. He's a 2-time world qualifier for Hearthstone, a D+ League of Legends. I'm assuming that's Diamond. This is showing my newbie. Okay. League of Legends player through season 4 and an Invite Plus CS player. Thank you, Nate. Hopefully I didn't mess any of that up. I don't know everything.
I think I spelled the countries wrong instead of 3 different counties. Not quite as impressive to work in 3 different counties as it was 3 different countries, but that's probably on me.
Hey, listen, when you're from rural Arkansas, 3 counties is a big deal, okay? It was impressive to me. So 3 countries. Thank you so much, Nate. We also have Dr. John Price. John is the esports director at Henderson State University in Arkansas. In 2018, he founded the first university-sponsored esports program in the state of Arkansas. Before working in collegiate esports, he was part of the professional esports team Tempo Storm as a founding member and web administrator. Thank you for joining us, John. And then if you have seen our newsletter, you've also seen all 3 of these guys' faces, but we did feature Justin as part of our newsletter. He is the head coach of Spring Hill College in Mobile, Alabama. He spent 13 years as a high school educator, spending 2 of those years as the head coach for Baker High School in Mobile, Alabama. After leaving the high school classroom for a district level role as the technology resource teacher with Mobile County Public Schools, he accepted a position as the esports head coach for SCH. Thank you so much for joining us today, Justin. And so I'm going to hand it over. Nate is going to be talking about college programs.
Thank you, Melanie. Appreciate it. So I'm going to take a couple of minutes here and run through the different types of collegiate programs that you're going to see across the country. And the reason for doing this is to honestly help prepare folks who are coaching or who are being admins at the high school level, or maybe even at the interim college level, where you're looking at what are the pathways of some of the students going to be going into these different situations, and what scholarships might be available to them depending on what these different situations are. And I think John is going to also elaborate on some of these scholarships that are available as well in certain aspects here. So you'll see throughout the college scene in North America 3 different types of programs. So that first type of program there, a varsity type of program, usually there's a very heavy focus on winning, heavy scholarship amount that are being given out. And these programs really only focus on maybe 2 to 4 teams at the varsity level. Some of the times they're focused on giving out full scholarship rides to certain folks, but these schools typically are somewhat smaller, looking to utilize esports to recruit anywhere from 2 to 4 teams up to about 40 or 50 students. But it really is focused on the varsity aspect of things. I'll come back and talk about the scholarship aspect of that program here in a second. The second program that you're going to see is you'll have a lot of colleges, mostly larger colleges, with a very student-centered and student-led approach, kind of a grassroots esports approach on campus, where the focus of the group is student engagement, a lot of grassroots movement activities, a lot of events that are being student-centered, student-run, clubs doing esports. They might have facilities, they may or may not have facilities, but they definitely have a large student presence on campus. And then you have a third type, institutional, where you've got the program being led at the top from an administrative perspective, where they have maybe an esports director, or they've got an esports coordinator or something of that degree, or they might have multiple positions. Usually those programs have some aspect of a varsity program, a club program, and a recreational program, kind of tying all 3 things in together. And then typically you'll see those last ones with institutional being in their title, having a little bit more of a focus on the curriculum side of things, or co-curricular activities as well, where part of the drive from the program will be to develop co-curricular activities through esports and gaming. Now, that's not to say that one of these is better than the other, or you should be targeting one type of school for your students over the other. It's just knowing what type of students you have on your team or in your program. It's very important to recognize which of these 3 different types of programs you're going to be sending them out to. So for that first type, that varsity heavy focus on scholarships, focused on winning, small component or small team size, small esports size, it's really going to be that 0.0000001% player that's going to be looking at getting a scholarship or an opportunity to compete for these teams. These are players that are going to be already competing at a semi-professional level or professional level while they're in high school. You may have people like this in your program, but we don't see a whole lot of those folks come through the door on a day-to-day basis. Those are the very rare, uber elite talented students. And if you do have students like that, there are programs out there in a variety of different games that you can help them connect with. Now, for them as a coach, one thing that you'll be encouraging them to do is, or helping them to do, is to reach out to these different programs and see what they're offering in terms of scholarship. A lot of these programs are all over the place. Some of them are offering full rides to players, some are offering a few $1,000s, and then there's everything in between. But there are programs out there that are able to provide those type of opportunities for students who do compete at that uber elite level. Outside of that, those programs typically don't have a lot of other student positions. Maybe they'll have a few, maybe there'll be a couple broadcasters, maybe there'll be people who work for the program, but there aren't lots of opportunities for folks who don't compete at that super high level. They often don't support multiple teams through multiple games. But if you do have a student who does compete at that high level, definitely recommend reaching out and finding those programs for that particular game. Right now, we see it in about 8 or 9 different titles. Most of the competitive titles that we would see competed at also get competed at the high school level. So we're really looking at League of Legends, Overwatch, Rocket League primarily as the big 3 that are receiving a lot of scholarships, potentially full rides. But then you'll also see scholarships that are going out for games like Counter-Strike or Rainbow Six Siege or You'll see Fortnite 2 out there right now. You'll see teams that are picking up Valorant players right now. I've seen some schools doing full rides for Valorant here. You'll see a couple that are offering things for things like Super Smash Brothers or fighting games. I don't think I've seen any full rides for those, but you'll definitely see some scholarship positions for folks that are in that area. And then you'll also see scholarships for some smaller games as well. The student centered, the student led programs, those are really the programs where the students are the ones dictating the program and how good it's going to be. There's all different varieties of opportunities out there. Generally speaking, those student-led programs, though, are not going to be able to offer scholarships to students who are looking to join their teams. So there may be an opportunity to engage once they're on campus. And if that's something that's interesting to students, they should certainly reach out and find out what that college is offering from a student perspective for an on-campus experience. But generally, I wouldn't expect scholarships, as the tryouts all tend to occur in the fall once the students are already there. The institutional one there at the last one, these are programs that are very often offering scholarship amounts. Very rarely are they going to be full ride scholarships amounts or anything approaching full ride scholarship amounts. You're looking at a couple $1,000s a year, $1,000 a year, maybe $500 a year for some of these programs, or no scholarships, but with the support given to the students in the program. For these ones, you're really looking at that maybe instead of the 0.0001%, you're looking at the 1% or the 0.01%. There definitely are opportunities for students to try out for programs of this kind. And if you have players that are very talented, would definitely encourage them to reach out and find programs that are doing the game that they're talented at the varsity level. Unfortunately, right now, there's not a great resource that's available for you to go and search for in a database kind of situation. Typically, my recommendation for folks that are looking for an esports college or scholarship is to first look at what do they want to study when they go to school. So let's say that it's engineering or business or science or education, whatever it might be. Look for colleges that are either regional to you or nationwide that do a good job of educating students in those areas, then narrow it down to esports programs, then narrow it down to which ones have varsity programs, and you'll find you have a much shorter list to go through for those particular students. Especially the ones that are doing this at the institutional level, the educational component is going to be what is the most important factor for them to making sure that the students stay on track and that they graduate and that they're making progress towards their degree and that the GPA is on par with what we need it to be. And because that's the focus, it's always important to find a student who's a good academic fit for the program first, and then a good fit for the esports program second. So even though they may be a very talented player, if they aren't looking to pursue a degree that university offers, they may not be willing to offer a scholarship spot to that student. So look at that first before you start looking at which programs might fit that student. We are seeing huge amounts of gains in this third area as well. More and more schools are starting these institutional programs where they have an administrator or two or three who are leading up the program to make sure that they're giving ample opportunities for these students to engage and graduate. Like I said, not a knock against any of these different types of programs. They all exist at the collegiate level. They all do their job well. Students are going to have the opportunity to engage as a non-competitor at all three of these schools, depending on the resources that are available. They're going to be able to do things like the broadcasting side of things, the tech support side of things, the side of things where they're engaging the student population, they're doing event management, they're organizing things for the student body, etc. But be aware of what types of programs you're reaching out to and about the opportunities that may be available for students in your area. My recommendation, though, would be to build a relationship with college coaches or college administrators who are doing esports programs, like the three that are on the call here, and saying, I've got a list of students that are graduating. Here's the games that they're playing. Keep in touch with them. That's a good way for them to reach out, because the same thing as there isn't a great list at the high school level to reach out to colleges. There's not a great list at the collegiate level either. We don't have a go-to website to say, okay, here's all the top graduating players in North America this year. That doesn't exist. So building that relationship with the folks that are in the collegiate spaces right now is super important. If you have any questions, happy to answer them at the end of the chat here.
Thank you so much, Nate. Um, Next, we're going to look at scholarship opportunities. So John is going to explain those.
Thank you. Nate covered a bit of this. We're just going to dive a bit further into it and move on and kind of from there. But to kind of give you an idea here, there's a lot of performance scholarship opportunities, and they range, of course, from those full rides, as we've talked about, but also for smaller amounts, like a few $1,000s. It could be 500. It really kind of depends. One of the great things is, though, there's a variety of different titles out there, and usually for almost every game that has some esports competition at a collegiate level, there's going to be some opportunity for a student, whether they're playing something that's a little bit more fringe, like say Dota 2 or Hearthstone or StarCraft, for example, to still be able to pursue those passions, because there's usually some type of institution that has teams for that are interested in it. Now, as we kind of mentioned before, Rocket League, League of Legends, Overwatch are right now some of the most popular and likely to find scholarships, but Valorant's a huge one that's really kind of exploded over the last year since Riot Games has been supporting that, and there's a lot of support coming that in the future. Siege is another one that I know I'm a big fan of and has a very robust community. And one part of you as a kind of a coach role is to kind of know what's starting to become popular, because programs adapt very one of the things about esports is that within a year, games, depending on whether contracts or just general popularity, can come and go. And that's one of the most difficult parts about this, is that sometimes games can come out of nowhere and all of a sudden, kind of like the rise of Apex Legends. If you haven't heard of it before, very popular battle royale title that there are programs that have started providing scholarships for. But on an area we partially kind of talked about is kind of the production side. And this is something that's becoming more and more popular nowadays, of where students can get scholarships for not necessarily the actual playing of the game, but instead of kind of the support and different elements around the industry itself. So things like graphic design work, streaming, shoutcasting, video content, social media. So there's a lot of different opportunities, because I can speak mostly from kind of like an institutional program example, as kind of Nate was discussing, because that's exactly kind of the description for my program. Is we have opportunity for students to get sometimes thousands of dollars in scholarships to take on some of those roles, which allow them to get real world experience doing something in an area they might be wanting to study anyway, right? Graphic design or computer science or some other kind of like broadcast production and the like. And so for us, we have programs and such for those, but there are lots of institutions that are providing that. And lastly is, of course, kind of like the assistant coach role. So for a lot of programs, they have students that are almost functioning as assistant coaches for some of these different areas. Sometimes it's a captain that's fulfilling that role. Maybe you have a team captain that's almost taking on a pseudo coach position, because a lot of times programs, they'll only have one or two maybe full-time staff who might also be wearing another hat on top of that, some other role they have. And so these students have an opportunity to earn scholarships via their expertise, whether it be VOD analysis, whether it be actually structuring coaching, or just providing that expertise that a program doesn't have. We have 7 different titles at my institution. I know a lot of the other ones have a variety of them, and you can't have one coach that does all 7 of those in an effective manner. And a lot of times students, they can earn a bit of extra scholarship money by studying and working in those areas as another opportunity for them to get experience, and as a way of, even if they don't necessarily have, right, there are plenty of students that might not have the best MMR or what have you for whatever game, but they have a passion for coaching, they have a passion for teaching, and that can be used and become a very powerful recruitment tool for an institution and make them very interested in providing a scholarship support for that. But I'll leave kind of that coaching element and such going over to Justin, as that's where we're kind of starting to head into now.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right, Justin, going to you. What are the coach responsibilities? You've been both high school and collegiate. Love to hear it.
All right. So the first 3 aren't really so much that what you need to do, but it's more along the lines of encouraging and pushing your student athletes to do these things, is acting in kind of that mentorship role. One of the first things definitely stress to them is the importance of those college and university entrance requirements, like the tests that you take, ACT, SAT, GPA, how important that is. One of the things that I do in the presentations when I speak with high school students is, I ask how many of them were on the AB honor roll in middle school, or you got the Presidential Physical Fitness Award, and they're all, yeah. I'm like, nobody cares now. It doesn't matter anymore what you did in middle school, but once you started that freshman year, every single grade you made counted and equated into this number of their grade point average, and how important that is in determining some of these academic scholarships that they can get. How important their FAFSA is for filling that out. I've run into that with a lot of recruits that I've been working with, and I can't award them any sort of scholarships, on the athletic side until they complete their FAFSA. And so it's shocking, I guess, how many students don't understand that element of it. And it's hard to say where the ball gets dropped, but it's definitely something that you as the coach and you as their mentor can relay those things to you. And I know a lot of you that are high school coaches are coming into this not knowing, possibly not knowing a lot about the games, and feeling kind of inadequate at times as far as like, how do I, quote unquote, coach them if I'm not skilled in that particular title. These are one of those elements or one of those aspects of being a high school esports coach where you will really thrive and really shine. You can make a huge impact with the students that you have. So definitely discuss those college entrance requirements. And I would start working on them early as freshman year. Where are we at on this? Are you actively looking at those ACT prep courses? How many times have you taken those types of tests? So on and so forth. Number two, make sure that you're discussing the importance of their maintaining their personal brands. And this is very general, very vague. So I'm going to try to get in a little bit of detail, but their brand essentially is how they are representing themselves. And these are taking, it's covering the gamut of, possibilities here. But you think about even just their gamer tag, how important it is that their gamer tag is something that is marketable and something that is going to be recruitable. I'm working with a high school right now out of Georgia, and there's a name on there that I'm just like, man, that's not something I would want to recruit. I see a player have. And so it's one of those where it's like, you don't want something like that would rub somebody, really the wrong way. You want to make sure that you're conveying an image that is appropriate and that's positive. And then beyond that, how they conduct themselves in that online environment. I just not even 30 minutes ago, saw a competitive ruling come down for a college based on in-game chat that occurred. And leagues and colleges take those things seriously. And these are student athletes. These are college students that are losing the ability to compete based on their actions in game and the text chatting and all that's occurring. So it's very important that you discuss those things with them and then model that behavior for them and encourage them to do that even in practice, even in those little things, so that we're always, hyper focused on how am I presenting myself? What is my brand? And then thirdly is by way of like what you're going to encourage them to do, make sure that you're encouraging them to look at and contact colleges early, getting those applications in. Sometimes there are some scholarships that are limited availability. And so they're getting in the door early could potentially get them, the scholarships first, depending on what type it is. But also getting that relationship being built way ahead of time. And one of the things too, you don't want students coming in late and making basically really snap decisions. It's crunch time. I'm graduating here. The application deadline's coming up. Well, this is the only college I've been talking to, so I'm going to go with them. You definitely want them to explore their options and making sure that they're making wise decisions and thinking about that stuff and meditating upon it and making a decision, because it is really their future. Really, it's not programs like mine, and I'm sure 99% of the programs out there, we don't promote collegiate esports as a path to pro. That's not really what it's about. There's a lot of the kids coming in that are coming through and they're using esports as a pathway to get a 4-year degree. If they're going to go pro, a lot of times they can do that from grandma's basement. They don't need to to go to college in order to go pro. So the emphasis needs to be on their education, from my standpoint, and that may be personal opinion, but either way. All right, number 4, let's get into things that are your job, things that you really need to do, that you can do to help your students. Number 4, rather, reach out to those colleges and invite them to conduct presentations to your student athletes. That's something that can be a great tool for, instead of just going to the lab after school every single day and spending 2 hours there where they, go into, solo queue or flex queue, or just, kind of do scrimmages back and forth. Or, if you need something else to kind of fill that time, then we're going to do college recruitment day. And, every Tuesday, we're going to bring in another college that's going to present their programs. And that's getting those things out there in the face of the students early, so that they can already be thinking about those things. That way, again, they're not making those snap decisions later on, right before they graduate or right before application deadlines. Number 5, I'm really passionate about this, and I think this is something that can do wonders for your program for multiple reasons, or in multiple ways, but in definitely the realm of college recruitment, would be to establish a social media presence for your program, especially Twitter. I know a lot of college programs are on Twitter. A lot of all of the professional teams are all on Twitter, and then use that platform to begin networking with those colleges, and like them, follow their pages when they post something and saying they've got a game tonight. Like it, retweet it, comment on there, good luck or congratulations, what have you, GG. Just start networking with them so that these colleges know you exist. I will say that in my search to find high school programs that have esports, or high schools that have esports programs, I'll go to that high school's website, and sometimes esports isn't even listed on there. They have the program, but the website doesn't say it. So how else am I supposed to know? And it ends up being one of those things where it's, kind of word of mouth, or I end up getting networked with them through another coach. And it's crazy how difficult it can be at times if I want to actively put myself out there as a collegiate coach and reach these high school programs. Sometimes it's very difficult to find them. Social media is one of the first places I look. I'm not sure about Dr. Price and Nate, but I know for me, that's one of the first places I look. And so I would encourage you to do that. With that same thing in mind, we go to number 6, final one. Not only do you need to use that social media presence in order to network with those colleges, but also use that social media presence in order to promote your players. And we talk about promoting the players. It doesn't just have to be, look at this, 360 no scope that he brought in, or look at this 1v5 that he got. It doesn't necessarily have to be this, mechanical outplay, this massive, jaw-dropping play that happened in game. It could be something as simple as, look at this player. We're so proud to have them in our program. This is their GPA. This is their intended college major interest. This is what they want to do with their future. We're so happy to have them. And then that you're promoting them in multiple ways. One, you're helping to break the stigma that esports is all about gaming. And so it's big for just the community in general and our scene and the industry, for people out there that are the naysayers. But at the same time, you're promoting that student, not just the athlete. You're promoting the student to those colleges and seeing those things. And if I see a student posted on social media that has a college major interest of business or graphic design, you better believe I'm reaching out and I'm gonna say, hey, we've got a program for him or her if they're interested. So that's, again, just a way to do that. The other thing, obviously, I did mention not plays, but using those hashtags to connect with the programs that are going to promote your players and help you with that. The hashtag play versus plays. I talked to Melanie about that the other day. That was a cool hashtag I used when I was at the high school program at Baker, and play versus was really, really good. If they didn't retweet it, they at least liked it. And when they like it, then everybody who follows Play Versus on Twitter will see it. And that's just really cool. I've got people from all over the nation that are seeing my kids from Baker High School, these gold League of Legends players who are never going to go pro, they're seeing their stuff. And it's really, really cool. And then they had that opportunity from there to then be noticed. And then it builds their pride in themselves and gives them that confidence to then approach those colleges. Like Nate was saying earlier, there are a lot of different programs out there for students. College esports isn't just for the superstars. I would love to have, I'm recruiting Valorant right now. I would love to have a team full of Radiants, but I can tell you right now, it ain't going to happen. So it's, we're looking for players really of all skill levels. We have a spot, and all these colleges and universities, they have spots for players of all skill levels because of all the different scholarships that can be offered, all the support staff positions that are available to them. So promoting them regardless of their skill level is a fantastic idea and a great thing that you can be doing to assist them at trying to get to that post-secondary level and using esports as a pathway to get there. Okay, I'm done.
Thank you so much. So I'm going to hop in on a couple of those before I transition. You do have a PlayVS public page that you can share out. If you go to your team profile, there's a little bar at the top that you can share out via social media, to your parents, newsletters, however you want. It's just a URL. The other one is we are looking for outstanding players to shout out and brag about. If you're in our Discord, I've been hopping in there trying to find awesome stories about players. So if you have a player, and like what Justin said, it doesn't just have to be gameplay. If you have a player you want to shout out, like please tag us using the PlayVS, either hashtag PlayVSplays or just doing @PlayVS. You can also let us know in like the events channel or in Discord, tag me. And I would love to connect with you to shout out those players. Moving on, what are the player responsibilities? Now that we know the coach ones, we're going to go back to Dr. John Price.
Thank you, Melanie. So just to give you a quick snapshot for something to help with your students and such on what players are supposed to do. I'm going to be echoing a bit of what Justin and Nate has said here, but I think there are important things to remember because you can't do everything as a coach, even when you don't want to. But these are things that can really help a student that's just trying to figure out what it is they even do to get recruited, right? And so some of these are going to be kind of more towards performance, but I'll talk about kind of the other aspect as well. The first one, though, is kind of on those clips level. One of the most important things is for a student, of course, is that brand. And one way they kind of show that brand and as well as their skills is through having clips/videos of the work they've done, in particular in the sense in esports. So if they've been competing for a bit, a lot of students/recruits that we look at have Twitch channels, have YouTube accounts that have a few different things. The types of clips I know, at least when I'm looking for and such, it's not just like that great headshot that they might have gotten if they're playing, a FPS, but it's examples of communication, of teamwork, times with like voice comms of where they're able to efficiently communicate. And even if they don't win the play, it's that aspect of you're seeing those key elements, much like you'd want to see in any college athlete that they would be recruited for a traditional kind of sport. The second thing is that kind of clear improvement over time. And so I know for many of you, some of these games, these are the first times you're having a chance to take a look at them and but one of the great things that's available is the students will have profiles and such that oftentimes they might have had years or at least multiple seasons and such. And that is something to remind them that, hey, you come a long way. Look, even you've started off here in Iron, let's say League of Legends, you've managed to get all the way up in the last 2 years, all the way up to mid gold. For me as a coach, that's a huge amount of improvement. That's someone to say, hey, that's coachable. And that's something for me, if I'm looking for performance specific scholarships, I'd rather have a group of gold/platinums that I know will actually take criticism and such than a ton of high diamonds or even masters that do not work well or have certain, attitude aspects. Another one that we've already talked about here is having some plan. I think one thing in the recruitment process that happens a lot is that students get overwhelmed. They don't know what questions to ask. They sometimes don't even know what it is they want to do. And that's, for any freshman going to college, there are a lot of times you just don't know. And so sometimes you as the coach beforehand, what you do, you help that player kind of pick a couple different ideas, give them that little aspect, because I'll tell you this, that makes recruitment so much easier and less painless, I bet, and kind of makes it painless for everybody, because there's always those awkward kind of like, oh, so what questions do you have? And everyone's kind of like crickets. And, you get into a conversation that all of a sudden the floodgates open, you have lots of questions, but having that planning and thought process beforehand really helps. Not only your students have a better chance, but also shows that your students are prepared. And that kind of gets us to the last part of the do's, is making sure you have an idea of what it is, whether it be cost is like the big thing for your student, whether it's being in state. It's one of those things I've talked to players like out in California. It's like, wow, this would be a great fit, but they don't want to travel all the way to the middle of the country, like into Arkansas, after being like living out in our California weather. I'd understand that completely. But it kind of just gives you an idea here. Some of the don'ts here are ones that I think we all can kind of understand, and we've already touched on a bit, but timing is everything. Honestly, as soon as the fall comes around, that's when we really just start kind of that conversation, or at least starting to scope out those students, making sure those students are already starting to get prepared, because by the time May is here, or even when we're getting into April, I'm still recruiting. I'm sure Nate and Justin, I had a recruit earlier today that was actually still playing with some of the Rocket League students I have. And yeah, we're inundated. We are already, I'm sure there's emails I've missed even this week from potential recruits and such, because there's just so much happening. And so the sooner you start, the better. And that's something to kind of remind the students. It's just like normal recruiting and such, or early admissions for colleges. The fall is so important. The second one here for performance specifically is making sure your students understand that just because they have really good quote unquote solo queue rankings and such, it's competition that a lot of times we're looking for. Solo queue can be an indicator, and that when we're talking about that, we're just saying like them just kind of playing the game in the competitive ladder that exists. So League of Legends, Rocket League, they all have their own, Overwatch, all have their own forms of this. But that isn't the entire story, because that's only one part of that. Isn't really like the teamwork element. So I'm often looking for more than that. So it's like, that will be an indicator of potential, but like I said earlier, if you're teachable, if you're coachable, if you're showing progress and such as a student, that's a much more compelling argument to me than just saying, yeah, I played a lot of solo queue, I'm a champ one or a grand champion or something. Another important thing that I've seen happen that can really tank conversation, it's like a player not even having researched the institution. There's nothing that takes the wind out of my sails where it's like, I've sent links, I've had a conversation or something, and then we come to a call we have, and it's like, oh yeah, where are you? It's like, that's never a fun one, right? And it happens, but that's something to show and to make colleges want to continue to recruit your players, is making sure your players understand that if you show enthusiasm for a school, the school is going to show enthusiasm and want to continue to work with you and potentially recruit you, because otherwise there's so many recruits out there. Like, is my 10, 20 minutes or making sure I might be moving on to another student because like, okay, this person doesn't seem as interested. Time is valuable, right? And the last one is, and this is something that's changing slowly, but not every game is going to be something that you can get a scholarship for. I've had plenty of students or recruits send me messages very interested in, say, competitive Minecraft. And it's like, I love Minecraft. It's great. It's a fun game. There's a lot of cool stuff and, possible, but maybe it's not it's not a scholarship that you can really award, or it might be in a game that just hasn't developed or is frankly dying, because that's one of the things that just happens. Like if the competitive scene has gone away, or for example, the example I always think about is Heroes of the Storm, competitive scene that just one day just disappeared, went away. So yeah, sometimes it does happen, and just being aware of that, understanding what the community is going through and the like is really important. So one really important thing, kind of moving on to the next kind of topic in this area, is having kind of something, your students having a profile or having kind of a set of resources available for them ready to go that you can provide for schools, that I found something students I've coached or suggested that can be very useful. And I want to give you a couple of tips here for how to build that. So this is kind of just an idea. I've taken concept, there's lots of names you could have for it, but similar to like what you might see on for athletes like rivals.com or something, is almost creating a resume / CV for yourself as a player, right? Things like your academic achievements, right? Because somebody that has a really great academic record and such, high GPA, really great ACT, SAT scores, they can open the door to institutions that otherwise you might not have been able to get to. There's a private college here in Arkansas, Hendricks, very exclusive, and it's very expensive. And they do have an esports program, but their vast majority of scholarships are locked behind that academic kind of having to make sure you have that thing. So you might have a student that might only be, let's say, a middling gold or silver player, but if they had the GPA, they could still get a really huge amount of academic help and be able to go to an institution and still play college as part of a collegiate esports program at one of these institutions. So obviously, academics, huge aspect in making sure that when you have those situations, or if you have a student, I actually have a call with a student tomorrow who didn't really take school seriously, had about a 20 on their ACT, GPA a little bit below a 3. That made it so there are a lot of programs where just because of the grade situation, they're not potentially looking at it. But because they started getting inspired because they found out about collegiate esports, all of a sudden they're doing all this extra work. And one thing you as a coach and then as the players highlight those types of situations that look at all this development we've had in just the last year and such. Those types of stories are things I want to hear because that shows drive, that shows passion, that shows investment. And if you're trying to build a program or trying to reinforce one, those types of hard workers, perfect for it. Volunteer and community service work, that's another huge one, particularly great if you're working with admissions and such. Sometimes admissions like, I'm not sure if we're going to admit them, but you can use that as a way not only to help show interest, but also to show that there's a larger depth to your different players and helping them provide else. Here's one that I wish students would provide a lot more of. Contact information. Oh boy, sometimes you find a candidate, you find a recruiter, it's like, okay, this person looks perfect for us. We have this program, we're really good at it. Let's get a hold of them. And it's just impossible to get a hold of them. And that's sadly something that's, whether it be email, whether it be Discord's one of the biggest ways we recruit. That should be something to mention. And if only they would check email, though I know professors that have a hard time with that as well. So yeah, give or take, and the like. And lastly, something that's very useful in general, I find, are letters of recommendations and such, whether it be coaches and teachers. And that's one of the big things here, because recruits nowadays, they're starting to have actual esports experience at high school levels and such, because they have programs and things, or they've been able to compete in other. But if you have students that, for example, only just started or have only gotten a year and they're seniors and they're about to be out the door, get letters from their former coaches if they did athletics at all. Because I'm still going to be interested in a student that did like athletics as well, just because that shows, again, drive, the willingness to practice consistently, the fact of working on a team. All those things are things I'm hoping to find in the students that I'm looking to recruit. And so even if a student hasn't done like in-houses or sought out different types of leagues that you normally might want to expect, that can still serve as a supplement. I actually had a student today, I was having a Discord conversation. He's like, oh yeah, no, I just got my Eagle Scout badge. It's like, oh yeah, okay, you're gonna do a lot of work here if you're able to do that and play all these esports and have a great GPA. So just an example. Specifically on kind of like performance things you would want to have. And I think this is the last slide I have, and then we'll get to questions and answers, since I know we've been going for a bit already. I already mentioned this, making sure to have things that highlight communication, a game sense, game knowledge. If you have things like a lot of players, they're active in forums. Maybe one of your players wrote a lot of guides or something while they're in high school. A lot of students love doing that. They find a lot of passion and fun interacting with communities. If they have that type of community moniker, that could be a really great kind of tool to show just how dedicated and knowledgeable students are. And if they're looking for coaching, maybe less of playing the game themselves, but instead coaching the game, huge thing to kind of provide. Of course, tactile kind of motor skill X displays, whether it be being able to pull off really specific, precise plays in Rocket League. You know, some people really can do the aerials. I can't, my hands are dumb. Those are important things to try to highlight. And of course, I already mentioned detailed statistics and rankings. Those are great things. Those are things that your profile's already going to have. And a lot of times the recruiters are going to be available to them, and being honest about it too. Like, if there are times you've dipped or you didn't have the best results. I've had recruits before cherry pick the results saying, oh yeah, no, I'm a champ one. And it's like, you go back, it's like champ one 5 seasons ago, hasn't played for 3 seasons. And it's like, you have some skills, but we're going to have to work on that honesty part, aren't we? Kind of thing. So those are kind of different aspects and things, and making sure to be honest about weaknesses or things. I think that's a key part that we're always looking for as coaches and the like. And those are kind of the bigger ones, I think, as a player. working on it for Recruit, and as well what your responsibilities are to try to help them through this process, because it's complicated, it takes time, and one of the things, it's like a difficult time. You already know, you've been working with these high school students, you understand that a lot of times they have more things going on than they really need to as it is, and adding in that recruitment, the more you can prepare for before that first call, the first time you have a chance to they sit down with their a coach or a recruiter, the more likely they'll be successful in getting a scholarship and finding a program that matches them.
Wow, thank you so much. So informative. We are now to our Q&A. If you have a question, please use the Q&A button it's usually on the bottom of your screen, and put it in. That makes it easier for us to read than try to keep up with chat. We do have a question. Should students focus on NCAA clearinghouse?
I can take that one, Melanie. I've answered it pretty frequently. So right now there is not really a database that we can search through. So anyone who's asking you to pay them money to post a profile of a student is exaggerating more than a little bit. There are some lists out there, but I would not recommend that from my experience. I would recommend reaching out directly to the colleges that you want the students to work through, whether you're helping the students reach out or the students are reaching out directly, or you're working with their parents to do that. But there's not a magical list out there that's going to help them get one of these scholarships.
Awesome. Kind of a follow-up question for that is, do college level esports look at stat websites that other sports use?
To get a quick glimpse, I'll use any of the tracker sites if I end up having their usernames, or op.gg, something like that for League of Legends. But those don't always tell the full story, as something that was mentioned before. So a lot of it too is, how communicative the student is with me, how forthcoming they are with just trying to really selling themselves to me, and promoting themselves in that way, not just saying, hey, look, I'm Diamond 2, and then just throwing it out there. A lot of it is I'm giving a student a discount off of their tuition, banking that they're committing to the program and they're going to be a great fit. And, all of that is bundled together in it. So, yes, do use those, but those don't tell the whole story.
Anyone else want to add in, or does that pretty much sum it up?
I guess the only thing is, if the question was kind of focusing on, like, are there other, because the way it was worded, I wasn't sure if they were like, you're talking other sports websites of like rivals or something else like that. Kind of like what Nate was saying and kind of Justin was saying, there really aren't that many even stat databases around like that. And a lot of times those also, they're just scraping APIs. They don't have a lot of other specific information about the profile itself. And mentioned before, there really isn't like some big aggregate for multiple things. The stat websites and stuff that exist for traditional athletics really do not exist yet. There are on the level at all of that in esports. And that's one of the difficulties about it, is it can be very hard sometimes to find some of this information. And that will hopefully change as times move on, but that is something we're kind of in the wild, wild west of things, so to speak.
Thank you. So I had a follow-up question. It was kind of based off of what John, you talked about, but the others can definitely weigh in. So if I have a player and they want to be an assistant coach, what are some concrete ways that they could show and provide evidence that they are that coach that could be good for your program?
Great question. So things I'm going to look for if I'm recruiting specifically for that area is kind of an understanding of the game, but not only that, also the ability to teach it itself and coach. And that's a difficult one. So sometimes I might ask if someone's really interested in, hey, I want to take on this kind of coaching role. It's like, okay, I want you to draw up like a basic plan for a practice. Well, what is it you're doing? Explain to me why these are happening. And of course, a lot of times these are students that are fresh, really trying to figure out what the concept of a lesson plan and everything is. We're lucky we have some coaching classes and stuff that are already here on our campus, and I use a lot of resources from that department. But it's more of, I want to see how they're thinking about how do they actually try to improve, like, for example, League of Legends. How do you improve map awareness? How do you work on the concept of like lane freezing? What do you do? What kind of things would you have your players do? How would you talk to them about it? And so those are some of the things I'm looking for. And it might be something that they know in depthly, or might not know in depthly. It's kind of even seeing like, how do they research that? Because that's the big thing about coaches. A lot of that time for coaching and a lot of that time for analysis for an esports program, you're spent doing a lot of your own research, going through videos, going through and keeping up on the meta, because patches change things, say in League of Legends. Not so much in Rocket League, thankfully. At least that's a little simpler, at least in constant updates. But those are all kind of the things I'm looking for in a potential assistant coach kind of position.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So I'm thinking like lesson plan and like reflection pages to kind of get that going and have a plan. Awesome. Sample VOD review. Yeah, great.
Right.
Follow-up question. Any interest in any shoutcasters or commentators, and how can they showcase themselves?
Same thing. Commentate over a VOD. That's, man, if I could get students right now to commentate. I do have some students that'll co-commentate, but right now I'm a one-man band and I'm commentating on everything on every stream. And it's tiring. So having a student be able to come in and take that over would be huge. But yeah, just showing game knowledge. But one of the biggest things there would be VOD review, and having them, or not necessarily a VOD review, but they would just commentate over a VOD, just mute it, and then kind of do their own commentary, and those are things like that that's that real world industry experience that's really cool that we can use to promote collegiate esports to the players who, let's be real, they're not going to be anything other than a middle of the road, if that, competitor. That's it. So when I made the comment earlier that collegiate esports, I don't believe should be promoting itself as a path to pro, but that's a little nuanced because we can promote it as a path to pro to the industry of esports. You don't just have to be a professional competitor. You can be an esports professional because the industry is so vast and broad. And those opportunities are great, especially for the players who may be like silver, gold level, not really pushing the cusp of being uber competitive, but they have a ton of game knowledge. They just don't have the mechanical skill. That's a great alternative for them. And they're giving me an asset to a program, and programs like mine and many others are willing to give scholarships for that, just because it's helping them achieve what they want to do.
I can talk a little bit more about that. We actually had a meeting about casters today, so very appropriate. For me, when students are coming in, we don't initially give scholarships for it, but we hire students to do it. So it ends up kind of being very similar. And what we're really looking for with that is students that are looking to do something with it outside of the collegiate program. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you want to be a professional caster when you finish, but that you're interested in doing it outside of just the school setting. So when I've got students that come to me that they're building a professional brand on social media doing this, they want to learn more about it, they want to be a part of it, they want to learn what makes broadcasting better, what makes their shoutcasting better. And then when they come in for an interview for the position, they're able to talk about one or two of the games at a very detailed level. Tell me what happened with the broadcast for LCS last night. Talk to me about what you didn't like about the RLCS casters from last week. Tell me what you think collegiate R6 should be doing to do better in their broadcasts. These are things that you can do now. You could sit there and watch the broadcasts and take notes at home, bring that in, be passionate about it. Don't just say, well, I'll do it. I'll help. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for folks that are dedicated and want to get more professionalism in these fields. And that's not just broadcasting. That's every supporting role that we offer, and there's dozens of them.
Awesome. Thank you. Going to our next question, do colleges seek out students much based on how well teams do in tournaments, such as the ones through PlayVS?
We don't specifically, but it would depend on the tournament itself. Honestly, if you are looking for the colleges to come to you to recruit the players, you're really limiting yourself in what you're going to get. You're really only going to get the players that are that 0.0001%. You might see one in 25 years of high school coaching. And if that's what you're counting on, you're not going to see a lot of the development for the players that you have moving forward. Most of the college programs that are out there right now don't have the personnel to be scouting players at these individual tournament levels. There are a few that do, but again, we're talking about the 0.001%. You need to be reaching out or helping these players to reach out. And if they're serious about it, give them homework to reach out to programs. Tell them, I want you to go home this weekend, find 5 colleges that you'd like to apply to because of their esports program that fit with something that you want to study. Have them do it when they're juniors, have them do it again when they're seniors, and they're going to start to apply to schools in the fall, and sit down and go through the colleges with them. That it doesn't need to be all on you as a coach, but the college programs don't have the personnel to watch these individuals and reach out to the players that are at that tier 2 or tier 3 level.
Thank you. I appreciate it. We do have some that have occasionally, but I was the person giving it to the college. I was kind of being that personnel and connector there. They looked at the standings page and reached out to the top teams. But I only know of a few instances where they were proactively reaching out in that way. I think it goes back to kind of what you said. You got to look at what college and major they want to go for rather than vice versa. And then also, I loved the idea of doing the profiles and tweeting out about your kids and what they like to do, their major, their GPA, looking at the other parts and aspects of the kid as a player, the whole child, like we've heard so many times in the education realm. Okay, we have a few more minutes and we have one more question.
Can I tag on to what you just said, Melanie?
Yeah.
All right. So you were talking about emphasizing their major that they want. And that's something that I really should have said in the coach responsibilities, but just making sure that they are going to a college university that has the program that they want to study, and they don't get blinded by the glitz and the glamour and the lights of, I'm going to go participate in this esports program. Remember, we're all on the same team. Yes, ultimately, I'm going to compete against John and Nate at some point, and they're going to rail us in esports. And I want the best recruits over they had. But really, at the end of the day, we're all on the same team, and we want all of you too, all the high school coaches. We're all just trying to help these young adults be successful and, accomplish a goal that they have of getting a 4-year degree and using esports as a pathway to get there. So they need to go to a program that has that major, and that needs to be a solid emphasis so that they don't, look back and say, well, I got to participate in esports, but I'm not doing what I ultimately wanted to do.
Oh yeah. For sure. Okay. Last question. I think it could be answered pretty quickly in our last couple minutes. If I contacted a college esports coach on the PlayVS Discord to learn more about their program and scholarship opportunities, would that be appropriate?
Yes, I think everyone would say yes.
Yeah,
I would love that.
I'd love that too.
Okay. So there you go. Quick and easy. Just be respectful of their time and that they are, a busy person. A couple things before we head out. We do have some coach chats. Justin's going to be with us again next week talking about free graphic design tools so that you can make your program look fancy and beautiful, so that maybe colleges will recruit your players and you can give them the shout outs. See how I connected it there. And then our next one will be about bringing fitness into your program. So ways to make your players healthier. They won't enjoy playing and going to college if they are unhealthy and can't actually be there and play. And then as we are getting into playoff season, we will be talking about prepping for playoffs, what playoffs are like with PlayVS, and what you can do as a coach. And that's it. Thank you, Justin, John, and Nate. You all did a great job. I learned so much. I'm sure our coaches did too. Thank you for giving us the pathway to get more players into college. We appreciate you very much.
Always great to be here, Melanie.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to let everyone go. Have a good one.